Hello, my name is Michael, and I am out here wheeling and healing by some trees in Spokane in my car because I did not plan for the rain today. I didn't and rarely ever look at my weather app, so I might need to start doing that, or at least maybe get some waterproof gear for my phone. But so thank you again for joining in today. If this is your first or second time, this is my second video on my channel that I'm making about my healing journey. And I feel a little more nervous today than I did the first one for some reason. And I actually began a video already twice and I had to stop both of them and take several deep breaths and meditate for a few minutes and kind of find my center with my spirit, because I was just all over the place. And I actually kind of outlined some notes. I journal often about just things that I think about and I'm feeling and working through and brainstorming, and it just helps to see things on paper sometimes. But as I'm writing down and as I was taking these first couple clips, and the last couple days I've kind of been preparing myself to do this next one also, and so each time I go to consider it, my mind just frays out like an old rope. It goes there's just so much about addiction. And I guess if I didn't specify, that's what the topic of today is about, is my personal experience with addiction. And so on the first video, if you watched, I gave a little bit of an outline about why I'm healing and what led up to just everything. And I mentioned that I've been clean since 2016, which I have been. But even that, I want to specify that when I talk about that, I'm talking about hard narcotic drugs. I use marijuana, and I feel like it's more of a medicine talking about addiction, I'm going to be open and honest here, a medication that I heavily rely on. I guess I can say I'm addicted to marijuana also. But when I was giving my story, I was talking about meth, heroin, painkillers, all the other stuff. And even with that, I got clean spring of 2016, but within the first year, I relapsed twice. Once on meth and once on heroin, once with each, and literally like a one-time use with each. And I know it was a relapse, but I also know my behavior as far as addiction goes and my patterns, and how everything was just like everything else. Everything changed in 2015, 2016, and it took a little while to catch up once I got clean. But that new change in me, I was open and honest. I wanted to start, I didn't want to go tell everybody my story, but those that are in my life, I feel like I couldn't keep secrets anymore, and I didn't want to, or so began the process of opening up and disclosing more and more and more. But okay, let me stay on topic here. I got clean, and so within the first year, I relapsed once on meth, once on heroin. I told everyone I was on probation for a year, and I told my probation officer. I had become friends with some of my neighbors and told some of them when they, with the meth, when I disappeared for a couple days. They were like, "Hey, how you doing? You feeling okay?" And I just was like, no. I feel like crap. I feel like a zombie because I've been up for a couple days, and The fact is that I told pretty much everybody that I felt that I needed to. And if anybody would have asked me, I wouldn't have lied. But I didn't continue using. And that for me, that was like something completely new and different for me, with using drugs. I've always been ashamed of everything. I think shame underlies everything in my life. Just about pretty much every thought or every other thought, action, and that leads to what we talk about and what we do. So all my but it felt good. It felt really good. And I didn't continue, and I can honestly say that I haven't used anything else since. I kept smoking cigarettes for a good bit after that. And so another thing I'm just going to say real quick too. I know that these are things, marijuana, cigarettes. A lot of people are like, all right, what's the big deal? And there's not really. I'm not judging anyone out there that uses. Even if you're using meth or heroin, I'm not going to judge you, because I know how valuable that was for my path. And overcoming that and healing it and just seeing the ins and outs and now being able to share with others. There is very much value in that. But what I'm talking about for myself with my personal path here is how it affects me and how it makes me feel and how it makes me think and feel about myself, or how it enhances my day or limits my day. And with cigarettes, that was, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, maybe there is. I don't know, who's to judge anyways, but to have a vice, to have something that we can lean on in times. This is we're in a physical planet, and we're in physical bodies, and we're susceptible to all these physical things. And I know there's very much more healthy things, but a lot of people out there drink alcohol, smoke cigarettes, smoke pot. And I guess the biggest thing why I want to talk about it is digging through some of the shame barriers and everything around it for me. So cigarettes, with that was different. That intuitively, I would be lighting up a cigarette, and my intuition was like, okay, buddy, what are we doing? Why are we doing this again and again? And every time I'd light up and take every drag, it's like my body was speaking to me and saying, why? So I checked in with the VA and they have programs, and my doctor, every annual physical, was always asking, you ready to quit smoking yet? I'm like, no. I honestly thought I would always be a cigarette smoker at the least. And at times I thought I would always be a drug addict too. But, and so they offered me their cessation program or whatever. There was groups once or twice a month that we could go in and meet with other veterans that were trying to kick nicotine to, and talk with them. And they gave us patches and gum, or the lozenges, I think. I've never used those, but I did the patches and gum, and I did it. I made it, that time I made it 6 months, and things started getting really, really stressful again, which is an ongoing thing. Stress is an everyday thing, but the waves and the ebbs and flows of how my life has kind of been these last few years, things have definitely been more difficult than others at times. And so that was one of the times that I was faced with my decision to keep and try to raise my son, or give him away to family for adoption. And I mentioned that in my introduction video, and I'll talk more about that and both of my children much more later. But that was just a decision that I was going through. There's a lot to talk about that. But it was tough. Let me stay on track here. It was really, really, really tough, and I was really stressed. So I went and bought a pack of smokes. I actually saw there's a cigarette on the ground, and that's kind of what tempted me. And I picked it up and smoked that, and literally minutes later I walked to the gas station and bought another pack of cigarettes and was a smoker again for another 6 months. Until, once again, my intuition, which actually was talking to me that whole time, again, that 6 months, but it started getting louder and louder and louder. Kind of how it did at the end of when I was using drugs in 2015. It started getting louder and louder, my intuition. It's like my body or my soul or God within me. Something is like talking through me, and it's not always words. It's like feelings, emotions, inspiration, nudges, come in many different ways. But so I did the same thing. I went to the VA again, and I got patches and gum again, and I slapped those things on for 28 days straight and chewing the gum, and did their little stair step program, and I did it. And I don't know exactly what day that was, but that was last month in October, 3 years ago. And I have not had one single drag of a cigarette since. And that feels really, really, really good. Really good. And to be able to say that I haven't used the narcotics, any drugs, like for several years, that feels really good. So that gives me a lot of space to be able to like give myself compassion and with everything else, because it's not just smoking pot. If I'm gonna get real, I'm probably gonna talk much more about this stuff later on, but eating addiction, porn addiction, living too fast addiction, TV addiction. I used to have a work addiction. The porn addiction used to be a sex addiction, which is all warped in its own ways. There's just a lot of healing that I didn't know that I needed to heal, and why I was reaching out to all these things and why we do. And let me take a big breath there. I'm going to sidestep a little and kind of explain something that was a huge mind blower for me, just revelational. Something that was discussed with me and a therapist that I had almost 2 years ago. And she was like, I've had a lot of people in my corner that are like, hey, buddy, stop beating yourself up for the past and where you were. Look where you are now, and maybe where you were and things that you did helped get you through that time. And now that you're not there anymore, you don't have to do those things anymore now. And all that makes sense. I've received a lot of very insightful information and wisdom from people, and it all makes sense. But what really started to put it together for me was when this therapist, when she was explaining it to me in a little different way. Excuse me for a second. And she asked me, she was like, do you know why you smoke pot? She was like, do you know why you ever used cocaine? Do you know why you use meth? Do you know why you use heroin or pills or anything? And I was like, I wanted to get high. I wanted to escape my reality. I wanted to feel something different or think something different than what I am in this current state. Perhaps an attempt to try to control a very uncontrollable world. And she said, yeah, those are all good reasons, and many, but she said, but those are all very surface. She said, go deeper. She said, do you know what's at the root and why? And I was like, no. I didn't really know what she was asking. And something that I really liked about her was that she was actually the one that I went to for 8 months straight every day, and we tore in like inner work like crazy. And I still kind of am afraid of her, or partially resentful towards her in my mind, because of like, I'm not. I am grateful eternally for things that I learned and things that I was able to uncover with her. But she broke it down. And so she's a little different than a lot of therapists that I've been. She's more maybe in the holistic range. Her suite, she wasn't actually at one of these behavioral health clinics. She had her own suite where there was other professional businesses all around, but they weren't all therapists. They were just different people that all have suites in a big building. And so she did her own thing. And the room we always sat in was like, I was on this couch and she had a chair and kind of the typical, the therapist, and we were facing each other kind of thing. But there was this doorway that went into this back room that was dimly lit and had plants, and sometimes I'd hear light music, really soft music like you might hear in a massage studio or yoga or something like that. And there was this bed. It looked like a little massage table. And so she was just a little different. She had different techniques. She had many of the same techniques. She got her degree in psychology or social work or whatever, and went to years of college and got her degree also. But she also is very, very gifted intuitively and spiritually, naturally, whatever, in many ways, but that helped be a different type of therapist. And I think because of where I am since my spiritual awakening and perceiving everything so much different now made me a match to what she had to say. I think that if I met her sooner than now, I probably wouldn't have resonated with it so much and probably would have been way too triggered and so many things. I just wouldn't have been able to be around her and really accept a lot of the information. But anyway, so I was ready and already kind of seeing signs and synchronicities in my own reality that's showing me how things are connected. And I've had major processes of revelations and just clarity on like how my own visuals of how things really are, maybe not fully, but starting to understand how things are connected and how everything that we see on this physical earth is literally surface level. Anything we can see, touch, smell, feel, if we use our physical senses to perceive it, it's surface level. And everything is connected so much deeper to a core level and many levels in between. And so when she started to talk about the core level of why using different substances, and it was nothing like I'd ever heard anybody else ever say, I resonated with it, and it was speaking to my soul, and it showed me so many things. So I'll explain that a little. What she said basically was, and it's easy to understand because she asked me, she was like, well, take Coke, for example, cocaine. What does that do for you? And I was like, get really revved up, time speeds up, I feel invincible, like I feel like I'm on top of the world, confident, overly confident, and but nothing that can touch me. If I was shy and had a hard time maybe asking a girl out and I was high on cocaine, no problem. So that type of false confidence and security and power, more or less, personal power. And she said, well, that's it. She said, so those people that are drawn to cocaine or derivatives like crack, are most likely lacking power somewhere in their life. And this could have started young, very young. It could have began anywhere in our life to where we felt like we gave our power away or our power was taken away. But she went on to say, okay, well, what about meth? And I was like, oh man, because that was probably, I was gonna say that was one of the harder ones, but no, Oxycontin was hard and cocaine was hard. All the drugs were hard for me in different ways, but maybe this is exactly why, because of the core issues at the root. And so with meth, I was like, oh man, talk up for days and talk to anybody about everything. And I actually wanted to be in social crowds. There was something about the hustle and bustle of that lifestyle when I was on the streets that was comforting and securing in its own way, you know? Because I could talk all day long about how homelessness and the addiction factor of being out there sucked. But there, with meth, there is just a different thing to it because, like, the connection, I guess, the unity, that's weird to bring that up in subject to addiction and drugs, but yeah, the unity of people feeling connected to people. And I mean, yeah, there's choice crowds, select crowds that you can only mingle with when using that drug, but it did something about connecting and social interaction. And I was like, yeah, I've been shy a lot of times throughout my life and didn't understand why, but also very extroverted at times also. And so I think what it is it's just that, like, my throat chakra, like my ability to clearly express myself or socially interact or whatever that element there is what kind of drew me in and allured me to meth and why I liked the high. Because all these drugs that I ever did, first time ever doing it, I'm like, I like this. It felt good, and it, in a way, it medicated me or like filled a void that I, you know. And so on, heroin and opiate, all. So heroin is like whatever, however, from the poppy plant, or I can't even pretend to know how they make it, but I do know that, like, the derivative of that goes into all opioid painkillers that doctors give. And if you've been in an accident or chronic injuries or stuff like that, and so it's really interesting there because there's probably something to be said on a collective level too, because everything as within, so without. If it's happening in our world, it's happening on the collective global stage also. The fact that big pharma and doctors, and I mean, there's probably something to be said with how we got there collectively as humanity. But with opiates, she asked me that, and I was like, I couldn't really pinpoint it. I was like, kind of a warm. I would feel like a warm, like a warmth, like being, like that warmness that you'd feel being hugged, or being in the presence of relatives that you know love you and care for you, and that kind of warmth. And I said, other than that, I don't know. I usually just end up falling asleep. And so I guess I don't really know. But she said, no, follow that warmth. She said, that's love. And that's the love factor of opiates and heroin. And you feel loved and nurtured and cared for when maybe that's missing. And so going on and on and on, it like opened my mind up to a whole new realm, to where I had been practicing not judging myself and not judging my past, but in that moment, and like knowing that, holy crap, yeah, social anxiety and trouble expressing myself, okay, and felt powerless, of course, especially once addiction kicked in. Nobody feels powerful when in competing with their addiction. That's some of the most powerless moments of my life that I've ever, me personally at least, where I've experienced that. And so all these things, and also that I don't have a desire to use meth or cocaine or heroin showed me that maybe I really am starting to heal some of these things at the core level. Because before, I used to think that I just wanted to use anything and everything I could get my hands on. Oh, I just need something to get high and change this. But there really is, nothing's random. Whether we know it or not, or we're aware or not, and everything is connected and nothing is random. And so that's just very helpful for me, I guess, through this process of understanding that and giving myself credit and stuff. And so with marijuana use, I was like, okay, well, what's that one? Because here, and let me sidestep just one more time, because talking about anxiety meds, or anxiety and depression, PTSD, blah, 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 all these things that I could very easily, and not even manipulating a system or out of my integrity or lying to anyone, I could easily go and see professional doctor or whoever the title, and get something for my anxiety. I could get something for my depression. I could get something for maybe both those help with PTSD. And I could get a proper diagnosis for bipolar, and maybe there's something for that. And I know that I've had attention disorders my entire life, and there's something for that. And I don't want something for each of those. I don't want to go see doctors and get a bunch of pills, first off. So the idea of like, okay, I can smoke some pot and it's like the one cure-all thing, that's a no-brainer. But here's the thing though. And so with the conversation with the therapist, I was like, okay, well, what's the hang up there? What's the core root of that? And she was like, standards, more or less. Feeling like we are not reaching somebody's standards. Excuse me. Whether that bar was set there by somebody else or ourselves, or if it's even a false, an illusion of that, of thinking that we're not meeting somebody's expectations. And I guess when she said that, the first thought that came to me was like kind of all those stoner movies, Cheech and Chong, or like Friday, How High. There's a lot of those movies out there that I'm sure most of us have seen. One of them at least, that like really portrays this, you know, the life and the day of a stoner, and the mindset of a stoner. And you know, I used to kind of get upset when stoners would be portrayed as lazy, because I'm like, man, we ain't lazy. Come hang out with us, see what we're doing. We're not lazy. We might not be doing the exact same thing as non-stoners, but there's like different creativity, different level of that. But no, I could advocate and say my opinion, but I guess what I saw when she said that was like how I viewed these movies, and like how Hollywood has portrayed being a stoner, and everyone's just like a slacker and not going to work and not doing their responsibilities and probably not even changing their clothes from yesterday. And it's like this, I get this this idea of somebody who doesn't give a crap about themselves, or maybe not anymore. Maybe they used to, and they, you know, or whatever. And so seeing that, like, I was like, whoa. Checked in with myself a bit, and I was like, there's no way I can lie. I can't even try to deny that I don't feel, I mean, just the fact that I'm here talking about addiction, and in the middle of it, I feel like stuck in some ways that I might not ever overcome certain things. And that makes me feel not good enough, or that I'm not up here enough at these standards. And so perhaps it's like a perpetuating cycle, but it's good though if I can give myself hindsight, like I mentioned this in the introductory video too, when I'm able to take a breath. I do that a lot, by the way. Take a step back and get a sense of where I was last week, last month, last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And you can see how we flow through life, and where I've come from and gone through, and now where I'm at. I feel like I'm getting a little off topic here. And I really don't want to restart this video because I'm like 29 minutes into it now. I guess just I've come to accept it. Let's just go there. I've come to accept that where I am right now, and that, hey, I use something to medicate things that make every single day a difficulty for me. That's okay. And practicing non-judgment, because that's another thing, is like that I am learning that I can't judge myself and guilt myself and shame myself out of addiction. It doesn't work that way. We have to literally love ourselves and understand ourselves and cater to ourselves in a different way through these things. And I guess maybe a big part of why I do shame myself for these things is because of my upbringing, and not just like the addiction factor, but throughout my life, but my upbringing, being that I was raised in a family that went to church often and abided by all of the set of rules that were taught within the church. And just things are good, things are bad. Things are holy, things are sinful. And so, and also my dad, my real dad, my birth dad, struggled throughout his life with addiction. And so that's where I say perhaps it was genetic. But whatever it is, I started judging myself. I guess maybe because of the church and seeing it as a sin, and I got so into it thinking that I could never ever stop doing this. I'm really sorry. I want to apologize that I'm really getting somewhere in my head and I feel like I'm doing circles, and instead of stopping the video and restarting, I think I'm just gonna like show this that this happens all the time. Rabbit holes, or just things that I'm emotionally involved with, shame creeping into things that I'm trying to talk about. And now I feel like I've totally lost my train of thought, and I'm just gonna breathe through this for a second and see if spirit guides me to where back to where I'm supposed to be, or just end this. And okay, so I guess just to I will conclude here, but for now, because there's so much to talk about addiction, I'll probably be making several videos about addiction and different ways that it's affected my life. But yeah, whatever I was trying to say about justifying that it came from genetics, or thinking that it's good or bad based off religion, and why I kind of formulated that, because that is neither here nor there. That's all how I perceive it. I'm medicating, and maybe I'm medicating pretty heavily with that one thing, and maybe that's because I'm not taking 8 pills in a day. I'm using one thing. Whatever it is, it's not good, it's not bad. I'm trying to zone in here. It's where I'm at. Okay, it's where I'm at, and it's how I think about it and how I see it. Because I'm sure a lot of people are like, what is this dude tripping on? He smokes some weed, so what's the big deal? But because of the internal struggle with addictions in general that I've had, and that I wake up every morning feeling like I need to reach for that first thing. And I mean, I could compare myself and be like, well, everyone reaches for a cigarette or for their phone or for something that's probably not just like a walk or meditation or something. But it's how it affects me, and it's like the first thought in the morning. It's the first thought after, it's like first smoking cigarettes. It's like after every meal, after sex, after sleep, after after anything. before, during, and after anything. That's addiction, right? Because it's in our head, and it's in our mind, and so if I was just talking about advocating for why marijuana can be used medicinally, that would be something different. But no, there is an addiction factor within me that distorts it and confuses this. It makes it a little unclear and complicated for me. And so, gosh, here's the main thing is that I am going to conclude, but I'll probably be back on to talk about this some more another time. I guess it's okay. No matter what, it's okay. That's where it's at, because I've been at my worst. And I know I'm not going back to that. But I guess why it's so okay is that I'm a human that came into a family full of wounds and shadows and skeletons in their closet, and nobody had the freaking handbook on how to be. Nobody had the instructional video on how to be and how to do life and how to feel our emotions and how to get through all of this. And so I feel like this is the most realist thing right now that's coming through, is that we do things to cope. We do things to act and react in life. And so I guess I feel like God's speaking right now in me. So when it comes to addictions, we can judge ourselves and guilt ourselves and shame ourselves all we want, but we got to understand that when we are acting out an addiction, we are attempting to make something better. Even if it's wanting to escape, and some people can say, oh, that's unhealthy, that's not realistic, but it's wanting to escape, is wanting to ascend from this feeling and to rise up, and that in itself is to wanting to improve, wanting to, and so I don't care. And now I'm just gonna say it. I'm an addict. I'm recovering from some things, and I'm in the middle of others, and I might always be an addict. Maybe as long as I'm on this planet, I don't know. But there's a lot to it, and I know that there's a lot of addicts out there, because I don't care what it is. If you're addicted to anything, reading books, working too much, whatever you do to avoid, doing something a lot to avoid something else, that's an addiction. Or maybe that's not the technical term, but I don't know the technical terms for a lot of things, and you could probably tell by now that, like, the way I talk, I'm not super educated. And I graduated high school, and but I don't know the technical words, and if I misuse words, then forgive me. But here, I'm gonna close on this note, that if you're watching this and if you're going through some form of addiction, love yourself. And know that each time, just to become aware of that each time you reach for something, if you can, there's this brick wall, I know sometimes, of the cycles of addiction. You can't really see past certain things, but if you can allow yourself to just understand that one thing, that the reason you're doing that goes so much freaking deeper than you can even be aware of, that helps to start to give ourselves a little wiggle room with some credit and compassion and love, and start there. And kudos to you if you've ever broken a habit or addiction that you didn't like, because it's hard. Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow. I feel like I need a nap now. This stuff is not easy for me to talk about, and I wanted to start this video, like, not just the 2 attempts ago this morning, but yesterday. I went on a good long walk yesterday afternoon and into the evening, thinking that I was gonna do it then, and the sun was setting and it was getting really cold, and I wasn't prepared for that in that moment, and I used that as an excuse. But No, I mean, I went to bed last night knowing that today I think I was going to make this video, and I was nervous. Like, I had this big thing to do that I was scared of and intimidated by it. And I am. I'm intimidated by all of this stuff and talking about it and knowing that I'm going to hit the button and publish this one. I feel very, very insecure. And it felt great to say that because that's my truth. But I love you guys. I just wish infinite love and blessings for everybody that happens to tune into this video. And I was hoping to keep it a little shorter for viewing sake, but I guess this is what was meant to be, because I asked God to just allow me not to say too little or too much, and to be with me in every thought and word. And I have to be confident that it was. And so yeah, infinite love and blessings for every one of you today, going through whatever you're going through. I hope it's good in this moment. And yeah, I just want to thank you for watching if you did, and hope you have a wonderful day. Goodbye.